Hey guys, so this is my first ever live by myself. I've been a guest on other people's lives before, but I've never done it myself. So forgive me if it doesn't go super well because I honestly don't know what I'm doing. So I'm just going to get on here and start talking, and then anything that you guys want to ask me, you can go ahead and put in the comments, and I'll see if I can take that on. I did get one question that came a little earlier today when I asked people what they wanted me to discuss, and it was about somebody that has a new foster dog, and the foster dog is very reactive when they see other dogs from only like 3 feet away. She just loses it. So reactivity is a big issue. It's actually never the issue. It's always the manifestation of the issue. So it's the symptom, basically is what you have to look at. And so there could be many reasons. Now, because this is a foster dog, they probably don't know much about the dog. I mean, typically that's what happens if a dog gets taken to the shelter or picked up and taken to the shelter, surrendered, whatever. A lot of times the shelters don't know much about the dog, or maybe they do. You just never know. So we don't have a lot of history. We don't know what could have caused the issue. But the way I look at that is that basically the foster person is taking a dog that already has some baggage because they're already displaying that behavior. But it's there's a big comprehensive answer to this issue because it could be a result of a lot of different things. It could be something that's happened to the dog in the past that makes them reactive to other dogs. It could be, and is often, a lack of socialization when the dog was younger. So would be considered a social deficit on the part of the dog, where the dog just wasn't exposed to a lot of dogs when they were younger. And those imprint phases of dogs are anywhere from 5 to 9 weeks is the first. There's two fear phases in the first year of a dog's life. So 5 to 9. No. I'm sorry. It's like 5 to 7 weeks, and then the next fear imprint stage is 6 to 14 months. Yes, that's what it is. 6 to 14 months. So anything that the dog is exposed to during those times or not exposed to. So it could be a lack of exposure, or it could be because of exposure, because of something traumatic that happened to the dog, that creates what we refer to as permanent memory. So those are things that are hard to overcome. They can be overcome. That's what you see when you get a feral dog, for example, is a dog that has not been, usually feral dogs are like fine with other dogs because that's usually their world, is that they were found, out and running around the streets or whatever, and they haven't been exposed to people, but they've been exposed to dogs. So they're typically good with other dogs, but not always. Or they could be somebody's backyard dog that was just so under-socialized or not socialized that they present almost like feral dogs. And I've had lots and lots of experience with feral dogs. The Cane Corsos that I got in 2020, they were extremely feral. They were just wild. Like, you couldn't leash them, you couldn't get near them. They would, defecate, urinate. If you just made eye contact with them, they were really a mess. And it took a long time. It took well over a year before I could get any of them to begin to act like a normal dog. And they always had like a remnant of fear. And Grace is the only one I have left. The other two, Steve and George, passed away, but they were extremely feral. So feral is just like an extreme lack of socialization is how I would put it. So the reactivity could be because of that, just because the dog wasn't exposed, and so they don't know how to be around other dogs. It could also be because the dog just really didn't have much of an upbringing, and they weren't given a lot of boundaries, a lot of structure when they were younger. And so they don't have social skills. They don't know how to present themselves around other dogs. There's so many reasons for this, you guys. I'm just going to list as many as I can think of. There are also instances where someone has a dog, and the way they, quote unquote, socialize their dog or get their dog exercise is they take them to a dog park. And in the dog park, there's typically not a lot of structure. That's just a free-for-all. I mean, that's why people go to the dog parks a lot, so their dog can play. And so the dogs go there and they play and play and play and play. And they learn to associate dogs with excitement, other dogs with excitement. So when they see another dog on a walk, that triggers them that, oh, this is what dogs represent. And so they go into an excited, adrenalized state. It a lot of times it looks like dog aggression, but it's very typical that it's really just reactivity and not aggression. And another thing that it could be a part of is leash reactivity. So a lot of times dogs develop, especially if the human is really tense and they've got the leash wrapped really tight, or the human sees a dog coming and they begin to panic because they don't know how the dog is going to be, or they suspect they know how the dog is going to be, so they wrap that leash tight. They take a deep breath, they're like really concerned about it, and that energy just goes right into the dog, and the dog is like, whoa, I need to watch out for this thing coming towards us, whether it's a person or another dog, and they freak out, and it presents like reactivity. These same dogs, a lot of times if you let go of their leash, or if you had them in a social with other calm dogs, or even maybe not so calm dogs, but if you didn't have a leash on them, they wouldn't feel that restraint, and so they wouldn't be as defensive. And a lot of these dogs are like that. They just want to, tear into another dog with a leash on them, and then you let go, you take the leash off, or you drop the leash, and boom, they're like a different dog. So that can happen as well. Sometimes it's, so let's see, Judith said, mine exactly the same on the walk. It's embarrassing, even though he is awesome with, I think that's supposed to say, with dogs and people. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the problem, is that we take it personally when dogs act like that, and I totally get it. I'm very lucky that I live up here on a ranch, and I don't, the general public, I don't see the general public. I don't have to walk by, I don't have to deal with them. So if my dogs do anything goofy, I don't have to be embarrassed by it. But, we always have to look at dogs as, they're not like, when people do something that is embarrassing, they're usually doing it, it's usually a well thought out thing that they're doing. They make a deliberate decision to act in a particular way that embarrasses you, right? But dogs aren't moral creatures. They don't moralize, intellectualize, or rationalize. So whatever they do is instinct driven. So if they see something and it triggers a response in them, then that's a response to an instinct. It has nothing to do with the dog making that decision. So I always tell people, I remind them, don't forget that your dog is just an instinct-driven creature. So when they do things, don't be embarrassed about it. Just know that, look at it from a non-judgmental perspective. And I say this all the time. Look at what the dog is doing, and just say to yourself, that's interesting. I know it's hard to do. It's easier to talk about it than to actually, do it. But many times it has nothing to do with you. And so just kind of look at it from the perspective of, that's really interesting, this gives me something to work on, or I wonder what's causing this, and try to remain as neutral as you possibly can, meaning don't have a reaction to it. Let me see what Jessica is saying here. Dog I'm working with is claiming everything in the owner's home, including the crate. Have you seen many dogs guard their own crate? This is rare for me, but this dog does have zero boundaries, so it makes sense. Yeah, I have definitely seen that before. Dogs will resource guard anything that they feel has value to them. And in this case, this dog probably sees value in the crate. The crate represents a calm place for them to be. Maybe they were fed in the crate. That could be another thing, and there's nothing wrong with that. I feed my dogs in the crate all the time. But sometimes dogs develop resource guarding because they're used to having something in their crate. And when I feed my dogs in the crate, that bowl goes in, they eat in about 5 seconds, especially the Huskies. I don't think they've ever tasted food in their life. They just inhale it and it's done. The bowls come out and that's it. So there's not a consistent presence of resource, high value resource like food or bones or anything like that. There's no high value anything left in the crate. So the dogs have no reason to guard it. In fact, they'll get in each other's crate all the time if theirs is blocked or doors closed, or that one of them is closer than the other. They don't really, they typically go into their own crates, but sometimes 2 of them will go in the same crate, so they don't have any issues there. But yeah, it's very common to, some dogs are just crazy. I remember a dog one time that had a huge fight with the other dog that was in the home because they were outside and a leaf fell from the sky, and that dog decided that he owned that leaf. And the owner said that she saw the whole thing happen, where the dog was looking at the leaf, and then the other dog came over, and she could see that he was looking down at the leaf, like kind of like, don't you dare. And then the dog went over just to smell the leaf, and boom, there was a huge scuffle. I also know of a situation where one time a family member was coming over to someone's house, and they were constantly bringing treats to the dogs, and they didn't really respect the rules of the household, where the owner said, please don't bring food over, don't give my dogs treats, make some space between you and the other dogs. She had a lot of dogs, and she wouldn't listen, and so she would always bring cookies and hot dogs and all this high value stuff. And so the dogs began to see her as a resource, a very high value resource, because she brought the really good stuff. And then one day she had a soda or something, and she wanted to put more ice in it, so she went around to the refrigerator. All the dogs followed her around. She put the cup up against the ice thing, and one of the ice cubes came out and fell on the floor, and all of a sudden all the dogs dove into it and had a huge fight with like 6 dogs. So that's because, yes, in reality it was nothing. It was ice, but from the dog's perspective, they had developed a conditioned response to this person coming over and bringing high value resources and not asking the dogs, basically rewarding that behavior. And when the dogs all came over to the refrigerator, she should have sent them away, but she didn't, and this is what happened. So yes, dogs can definitely resource guard crates and leaves and water, and even in some countries, like when I was in Asia, I remembered dogs fighting over shade, stray dogs, because it was so precious, and it was in July and it was ungodly hot, and they would fight over spots in the shade. So, you name it, they can resource guard it. Struggling with heal. What's the most reliable method? Lure with treat, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, e-collar, transitioning from one method to another, learning, proving, thanks. I think this is like the quintessential problem that everybody has. Everybody wants a dog that walks nicely beside them on a leash. I think if we could snap our fingers and have anything, that's usually what people want. People will come to me with a whole list of issues, but that's always one of them. I don't want the dog to pull me on a leash. I want the dog to, they don't necessarily say heel, but that's what they mean, is a dog that walks by their side. So, there's a few things you can do. One of the main things is that if the dog is pulling in one direction, you don't want them to continue, you don't want that to be successful for them. So if they're moving in one direction, then you need to go in the opposite direction, whether it's they're going way out in front of you, or they're staying beside you and they get 2 or 3 feet out ahead of you. You want to turn, like what I would consider like an about face kind of turn, where you're turning and then going the other direction, and if the dog shoots past you, you do the same thing again. You don't get very far, you're just going back and forth. The principle of it is long line work. You don't have to necessarily have a long line in order to do the concept of long line work. You can just literally be teaching pressure and release to the dog, meaning that if the dog goes out, they bump into the end of the line. If you just allow them to go out, they're going to bump into the end of that line, and then they're going to learn that the way to release that pressure on them is by going in the other direction, and then the pressure goes away. And it takes some time to do it, but in some cases you can do one session with a dog and they start to understand it. The bottom line is that if they're rewarded by moving forward, which is what most people do, they just like put their arm out and let the dog drag them down the road, and so the dog learns that pulling is a very successful technique of mine because I still get to go where I want to go. You can also try my leashes, for example, the figure 8. You can do it with any leash, to be honest, but the figure 8 that you put on the dog, or what we sometimes refer to as the power loop, that has a real chill pill effect on the dog. And it's a really nice tool because most people, what they worry about when the dog is pulling ahead of them is they worry that the dog is going to choke themselves out, which would be very unlikely that a dog would put that much pressure on themselves. Yeah, they can hack and cough and all that stuff, but they're doing it. They're basically making the decision that they'd rather pull than to release than to adhere by your side. So you can do that. It works a lot like a halter on a horse, where if you can control the head of the horse, you can control the head. So it goes around the muzzle. It's just basically a slip lead that you twist into a figure eight, put it over the dog's muzzle, and then it crisscrosses under the chin. So nothing goes across the throat at all. So there's no choking involved. It's just that, and then the pressure is centered behind the neck in the middle, so it's, you can do a lot of things with it when it comes from the middle. It works. People ask me sometimes, is it like a Halti? And yes and no. It's kind of like a Halti. The thing that I like the most about it is that one size fits all. Haltis, you have to get whatever particular size your dog is from. I think they go from 0 to 4 or 5 or something like that. I'm looking at these questions as they come in. I don't want to lose them. I don't want them to keep going up. You can try the figure eight, because again it's one size fits all. And the other thing I like about it is that the pressure comes from the center as opposed to the Halti, where it goes under the chin, so it kind of turns the head like this. So I would try that, but mostly I would try the exercising. Doing that exercise of letting the dog go ahead of you and then turning and going the other way. You're not going to pop the leash. It's not a corrective exercise where you're putting a pop at the end of the leash and basically telling them, no, don't do that. This is a different kind of exercise. Oh, I see. I can scroll down and still look at the questions. That's cool. I told you guys it's the first time I've done this. So when you're doing the long line work, or you're doing that practice of teaching the dog to yield to pressure, and that pulling ahead of you isn't going to work for you, you're just going to let the dog create the pressure. So the dog goes out, runs into the end of the line. You can either stop, or you can turn and go in the other direction. Let's just say you stop, the dog starts to pull ahead, you're completely irrelevant to the dog, and you know it, you can feel it. The dog is like barreling ahead of you. He's like in complete full-on drive to go forward, and you just stand there. Well, he's going to run into the end of that line, and when he does, he's going to create pressure on that leash. And then you can just either you can stand there, or you can put a small increment of pressure on the leash. Again, not a pop, but an increment of pressure, just a tiny bit of pressure, and turn and go the other way. And so what he learns is, oh, when I yield to that pressure and I go back towards my handler, all of that pressure goes away. Does that make sense? It's a skill that you get better and better and better at, and it is at the crux of everything I do, I think, is pressure and release work. And that's just one aspect of pressure and release. But it's an amazing, again, it's not a magic wand. It's not going to happen overnight. But it is a phenomenal exercise to have, and strategy to have for dogs that pull and that won't heel. Okay, so try that. Try the leash. Try both, and just practice and be patient. Okay, great. So this is the next question. Great. So these are more controlled training sessions, but if you need to actually walk and they haven't proved yet, should I keep correcting while moving forward? Well, I would say start practicing this in a controlled training session as soon as you can, because the problem with constantly correcting, and you probably already know this, if you're correcting every time the dog pulls ahead, where is it getting you? I mean, is it resolving the issue? My guess is that it's not, and that's why you're asking the question. So I did the same thing for years and years. My original upbringing in this industry was I corrected everything. That's how I thought it was supposed to be. And I still correct. I'm not anti-correction by any means, but I like to give direction and teach a dog what I want them to do, as opposed to telling them no after the fact. And that's basically what a leash pop is telling them no. And a lot of times they get, and again, there are times and places for this, for sure. So don't anyone come at me and say I'm against corrections, because that's not the case at all. But a lot of times what happens is the dog becomes desensitized to the leash pop, and it means nothing to them, and you're just out there just popping and popping and popping, and you're not getting anywhere. And in some cases, to the dog, it feels like you're nagging him, and it will actually exacerbate the reactivity. So they will be like, just, geez, leave me alone, like you're just popping, popping, popping. And sometimes the dogs will begin to associate that pop with the reactivity, if it is reactive, or if it's just like the dog won't stay by your side, that's a little bit of a different story. But if the dog is just pulling ahead, I would advise you to really put aside some time, and you don't need a lot. Like, go out and commit to 2 sessions a day of controlled walking on the leash, of going out, letting him go ahead of you, turn to go the other direction. And again, and stay as neutral as you possibly can. Try not to get frustrated about it, because it can be frustrating. I've been frustrated before, especially in the beginning of my career. I got very frustrated when the dogs would pull. But this is what I've learned to be true. And if you consistently train this and just do 2, if you can't do 15 minutes, do 2 10-minute sessions a day. That's total of 20-minute commitment, and see how far that will get you. Because the popping of the leash, what I always tell people is, if you pop the leash once or maybe twice at the most and it works, that's great. Then that makes way more sense than going to any other elaborate extent of how you're going to. Sometimes dogs just get, like, if I'm walking, especially if I walk in the more organic part of my property where there's deer and squirrels and turkeys and coyotes and all kinds of things on the ground, they will go from walking on the asphalt where they're great to walking on the organic surfaces where their nose just goes crazy, and they might lean over to hit on a particular scent. And I've always got 8 to 10 dogs with me, so it only makes sense for me to just pop that particular leash and snap them out of it, and that's usually the last time I have to do it. But if it works after 1 or 2 times, then that's all you need to do. You're just interrupting the pattern and taking the brain back to a neutral state for the dog. But if it's a constant nag, it gets old for you, and it gets really old for the dog, and the bottom line is it's not working. So try something different. So I hope that, let me make sure I answered your whole question. I haven't proved it. Should I keep correcting? Yeah, so I did. I just wanted to make sure. Definitely appreciate the 180 U-turn and gear recommend. Oh, good. I'm glad you appreciate that. And I guess that came across like a shameless plug of my own leashes, but they are really good. Let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, this kind of work for 10 to 15 minutes can be very tiring for dog, quality over quantity. Absolutely. That's a positive thing too. That's a good thing, because it's the same as any other thing you do. If you go out and practice place work, especially with a dog that's not conditioned to it, and they really have to think, like, what is it she wants? Oh, she wants me to get on. Now she wants me to stay. Oh, should I stand up? Should I sit down? Should I lay down? How about if I go off here? Oh, now she went over and sat down. Maybe I should get up. Like, that's all very draining psychologically and mentally for the dog. And so that will sometimes accomplish more of an energy drain than a 3-mile walk would, because the dog is having to bring, when they're going on a walk, they're just kind of on autopilot. At least my dogs are. I mean, we go out the door and it's like boom, like they're focused on, they're migrating basically. They're moving forward. Their purpose is, let's migrate, let's move. They're not interested. They're not paying attention to each other. They're not even paying attention to me, honestly. They're just in migratory mode. The same way you would see dogs or wolves or coyotes in the wild. They're focused on moving forward. They have a mission, which is why it works so well when you're working with a dog that has behavioral issues, particularly towards other dogs, to bring a dog with issues into a balanced pack. Because, well, let me back up a little bit. If you got that same dog that has reactivity issues or aggression issues or whatever, and you just threw him in the yard with 8 dogs, you're going to have a fight, right? Because the dog is like shock and awe, and they don't know what's going on, and their trigger is other dogs, and so it's not going to go well. But if you get a dog integrated into a balanced pack where all of the focus is on going forward and not on each other, that's how you balance out a dog. Balanced pack walks are like so amazing for so many reasons, but that's one of the primary reasons for it, is that your focus is very different than if you put a dog in a social setting. You just toss him in there when he knows, he doesn't know the dogs. You don't know how those dogs are going to react to him. You don't know how he's going to react the other way around. And so it can be a very precarious situation. But if you walk them in the same direction, they're all on the same page, migrating forward. And then at the end of the walk, they're like, oh wow, nothing went wrong. I could actually be around other dogs, which I didn't think I could do before. And at the head of the pack was this human who I now feel I can trust. So I'm generalizing there, but I think you get my idea. Okay, let me see what else. How do you help a dog that is reactive to cars and trucks when walking on the street? We'll watch every car and truck that goes by. So that's prey drive, and you see a lot of that. I worked with a dog that had actually lost one of his eyes because he lived on a farm close by here, and he kept chasing the tractor, and one day he bit the tire and it flipped him, and the pressure of it, he lost an eye, and he kept doing it. Like, he didn't learn. He learned absolutely nothing. In his case, we conditioned him to an e-collar. So he came to me for a couple of weeks. He learned about, e-collar. I built the foundation. I did everything that I'm supposed to do. I did it the way I teach it, which is I don't just blow a dog up with an e-collar. I teach them what the stimulation means in a very fair way. So I basically marry the one form of pressure with another form of pressure. So if I put the dog on a leash and I pull the leash and move them toward me and ask them to come, I layer that with a working level stim, meaning the level that the dog feels, responds to, but doesn't react to. So that's the big difference. Response and reaction are two different things. So reaction would be the head kicks, or the dog looks in the direction of where the box is, or they vocalize. It could be any of those things. You don't want that. You want it to feel like this, like, hey, what's up? Hey, I'm about to instruct you to do something. Hey, I want you to come in this direction. Hey, I want you to go in that direction. I want you to sit. I want you to, whatever it is. You can basically apply leash pressure with e-collar pressure at the same time, at the exact same time, and that's how you begin to teach and condition the dog, so that by the time you do get into a situation where the dog needs to understand, needs to not chase something, like in this case the tractor, in your case a car or a truck, then what you have options. Instead of just lighting the dog up the way they do in rattlesnake training, which is a necessary thing for, we just had a rattlesnake bite, so I know all too well. Rattlesnake training is hard to watch, but it saves a dog's life. So in that situation, all bets are off. It's like a 1 second harsh correction is going to save that dog's life. But in the real world, if you want to use the e-collar appropriately and be able to communicate with it, then you want to teach the dog in a fair way. You want to condition the dog to build this foundation. And then what you can do, as opposed to just lighting the dog up when he sees a truck or a car, you can ask the dog to come back to you and come by your side. If you're on a leash with them, then they're probably not that far out from you anyway. They're probably a foot, 2 feet out, and you can condition them to come back by your side by tapping them at a working level. In the case of the tractor situation, what we did was, when I took him back to his home, then when he triggered on the tractor, as soon as you could see that in his mind he had made a commitment to, the intention was there. It was very clear the intention was there. The ears would go up, the dog would get into that prey drive posture, and at that moment they would call the dog back to them and put him by their side. So he learned that by my side is safe, and out there not so safe. They were fully aware that if he ever made a break for it, then the only thing to do to save his life and to keep his other eye would be to tap him at a corrective level. In that case, I don't have a problem with that either, because the dog obviously nearly killed himself the time he did it before, and he'd been doing it for a couple of years. So he's doing well on it. I still talk to them from time to time, and he won't get anywhere near the tractor, but he's not traumatized by it either, because he was taught how to move away from it. So that's the cool thing about e-collar training when it's done well. If you're only using it to correct a dog, then that's the only thing you'll ever be able to use it for, because the dog only sees it as a corrective tool, as a heavier hammer, so to speak. But if you're using it to give the dog direction, you have so many more options. For example, another example would be, one of the things that we do here a lot in my workshops is, I have a cattery, and I have 3 cats in there, and I get a lot of dogs that have issues with cats. Not uncommon. And so we'll let the dog go out into the yard, we'll put a long line on him, and as soon as and then we put a place board down. So bear with me because this is a little bit of a process. So we're assuming that the dog is very well conditioned to the place board. So he sees the place as nirvana. This is where nothing can go wrong. I can decompress. I'm safe here. I can relax here. All of those good things. He's learned it organically. He's very good with it. If you tell him to go to place, he goes and he immediately settles, and you can see the state of mind shift. So if you have that in place already, it makes this exercise way more powerful. And so you've got the dog on a long line. The dog starts to go out towards the cats. He triggers on the cats. Now you have two options. You can light the dog up, right? And it will probably work in the moment. The dog will flatten or, vocalize and probably come back. But it will not have changed the dog's mind about what his options were when he saw a cat. All he knows is that I got hurt for that, and it doesn't mean he won't try it again. It didn't change the dog's mind about the cat whatsoever. But if you can let the dog go out, you've got your place board here, right? You got your place board here. You've got your cats here. So you let the dog go out. He's, as soon as he starts to trigger, and then hopefully before he gets way over threshold, you call him back. So he's got to have good recall as well, or at least you should be in the process of teaching good recall. You tap him and bring him back, and then you put him on place. So there becomes this contrastive feeling like, oh, when I go out there and I get all fired up over the cats, that doesn't feel very good. But when I come back here and get on place or by your side, that all goes away, all that pressure goes away. So there's this feeling, and then there's that feeling. And so there's a contrast of feeling, and that can be taught very well with e-collar as long as the dog is conditioned to it properly. So, it's like everything else that I teach. There's no quick fix or magic wand to anything. You have to still do the work. You have to build that foundation where the dog, and you've got to have a balanced relationship with your dog. You can't have a dysfunctional relationship with your dog and expect your dog to follow your lead on anything or to feel that being by your side is a safe place, because it's not. So there's often a lot of work to do. Not always, but there's often a lot of work to do. But everything that's good in life takes time. Everything. I mean, name something that doesn't, right? And so that's what you need to do. E-collar would be an option for sure. You can do a lot of things without an e-collar. You could just have a leash on the dog and call him back to you. It would probably take longer, but it is a prey-driven behavior for sure. But that's without going into any other huge explanation. Look into e-collar training with somebody that knows how to do it appropriately. Find out from your friends or from because it's not everybody knows how to use it appropriately. I promise you that. I train trainers. That's what I do, and a lot of them come here only knowing how to use it as a corrective tool, and they've used it at a really, really strong, level. And a lot of times the dogs will come in, and when the e-collar is put on them, they start to salivate. Their eyes get big like saucers and dilate, and because the dog is associating something really negative with the e-collar, and we don't want that. We want it to be taught properly. So if you're interviewing somebody, you're talking to somebody about potentially training your dog with an e-collar, and I do recommend that you do get a professional to help you. Ask them about working levels. If they don't know what a working level is, you need to find somebody else, because they need to understand. So because if they don't know what a working level is, then they're only using the e-collar punitively, and there are times and places for that. Rattlesnake training is one of them. Dogs that counter surf. Sometimes one decent correction for a dog that's counter surfing ends the conversation, and it's done. So I don't have a problem with using a corrective level on a dog, but I would say that 95% of the time I'm going to be giving that dog direction with the e-collar, and only 5% will I give that dog correction. Because if I'm directing the dog well enough, he's not going to need a correction, because he's going to understand what he can do in lieu of practicing the reactive behavior. I hope that makes sense. Let me see if there's something else down here. Okay, how can we learn from you? As a dog trainer from Canada, do you have any online courses? I have the Learn to Lead Academy, which is it's a membership program. So once a week, we go live on Zoom, and people that are members can come on, and we usually talk between an hour and a half and 2.5 hours. It goes as long as it needs to go before, until everyone's questions are answered, and you can ask anything about anything dog training related. And I would say 50% of the people that are Learn to Lead Academy members are civilian dog owners, and the other 50%, and this just turned out this way, it's nothing I did to make this happen, the other 50% are trainers. Some have trained with me before, and they actually use this as follow-up, so they can continue to have me guide them through particular cases or new cases or whatever. And some people have never met me, and I have students from Europe, I have students from Canada, for sure several students from Canada, but it's a very inexpensive way to have live access to me 4 times a month, basically once a week. And again, we go as long as it takes. Sometimes people have a lot of questions and we stay on longer. Sometimes people come on and they use it almost like a podcast, so they'll just listen. They don't have questions, they don't even turn their camera on. They're just there to listen and learn. And some people will come on and then they'll log off. It's like a very informal type of thing. But I have the people that are on, we're like a community, we're like a family. It's pretty cool. And it's usually it's like a gym membership, I guess you could say, where people sign up, and some people show up all the time and some people show up once in a while, but it's whatever you want. So if you look on my bio, you can see that there's a link there. It's called the Learn to Lead Academy, and you can sign up on that, and you can cancel at any time. We also have a Facebook group, so we can share videos and talk about things in between sessions. And then it's also archived. So if you miss a session, a lot of people do this more than I thought would. There are a lot of people that when they miss a session, they go in and they watch the whole session in its entirety, which is kind of a trip, because I wasn't sure people would do that, but they really find value in it and they do it. So that's how you can learn from me that way, but you can also come and join us from Canada. And you can attend a workshop or a mentorship program. I have my Learn to Lead Academy, which is my 3-day academy, and I do 2 of those a year locally here at my ranch. I just did one. I have another one coming up in October. I think it's in September, October. I think it's October. Yeah, it's usually March and October every year. So I do have room in that. I take 10 working spots and 10 audit spots. So it's very, very affordable as well. It's 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We provide lunch for you. It's hands-on. The day is basically divided up by the 10 cases. And then the people that come to audit, it's half the price of the working spots. Working spots are $1,500, and audit spots are $750. So if you just want to come and observe, and some people prefer that, or they come like you, for example, they come from Canada or Europe or wherever, and they don't want to bring a dog. Other people come and they get working spots, but they also don't bring a dog, and they want me to provide one for them, which is easy because I have rescue dogs and client dogs. And so I prefer when people come without a dog that they work with a variety of different dogs, because I think it's just really good handling for them, but they can do whatever they want. But it's just nonstop 9 to 5. We do pack walks on Saturday and Sunday morning, and we provide a catered lunch. It's a cool event at a very affordable price. And then my Train the Trainer is my mentorship program, and I only take 6 people for that, and I have 4 of those a year. I just finished one. I've got one coming up in April, but it's sold out, and I have a wait list for that, so it's probably unlikely that somebody could get into the April one. But I have 2 more. I have one, and let's see if I can get it right. Now, you would think I would know. I think it's September and November. I think it's November 2nd through the 4th, and September, I can't give you the exact dates, but it's those. There's 6 spots in each one of those, and it is definitely the most intense course that I teach, because I only have 6 students. I don't have audits, and we just it's exhausting, but it's very cool. And you'll learn literally everything that you want to know will come up at some point in the 5-day Monday through Friday workshop or mentorship program. So I hope that answers your question, but I would love to have you maybe start with the Learn to Lead Academy. the live membership course. That would be a good place to start. Let's see if I've got anybody else. What brand of e-collar do you recommend? I use e-collar technologies. When I started out using e-collars, I used Dogtra. Nothing wrong with Dogtra. I don't even know why I started using e-collar technologies, but I really, really like them. You can't overcharge them, which is one really good thing about it. I don't know, maybe doctors are like that now too. Back when I started using e-collars, they weren't, and you could overcharge the battery and it would mess them up. But they probably resolved that by now. But you can plug them in and leave them forever and it doesn't bother them at all. I like the feel of the remote in my hand. It's round. It just feels right for me, but again, I'm used to it. So they're both really good quality e-collars, but I prefer e-collar technologies. And of course, they're waterproof. You can get different colored covers on them. You can get them custom made if you want. I don't do any of that, but you can do that. So a lot of people really enjoy doing that and getting their logo put on there and everything, and you can get all that done. But it's a very the other thing I really like about e-collar technologies is their customer service is insanely good. There's somebody actually there. I mean, you can call and talk to somebody. I know the names of the people that are in the front, and if something goes wrong with your e-collar, they'll just tell you, okay, test it, try this, try that. If it's still not working, just send it back. They're incredibly responsive. So I really like that now in this day and age where you can't ever get anybody on the phone. It's really nice, and they're shipping too. You order something and it's like in your hands 2 days later. It's crazy how good their shipping is. So that's another good reason to use. And I'm not a representative of e-collar technologies, just so you know. You seem to be a very kind. Oh, thank you. That's very nice of you. I appreciate that. I try. My mission in life is to help people have a great relationship with their dogs, where their dogs can be a joy to them instead of a burden, And my other mission in life is to raise as many trainers in this industry to be excellent trainers. That's my complete. That's the thing that gives me the most happiness, is to work with young trainers that are open-minded and interested and hungry for knowledge, and then to watch them grow is the best feeling in the world for me. I absolutely love that, to be able to watch one of my students do something. Not that they get every little thing from me, of course not, but just to watch them take information and then make it their own, and then have an effect on others and be able to spread what they know to other people is phenomenal for me. That's what I live for. But thank you for the compliment. That's very kind of you. Best customer service, e-collar technology. Absolutely. That's my friend Inger. They do have really good customer service, as I said. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, Kim. You're so kind also. I have a lot of kind people in my life, and they're either students, clients, or they've adopted a dog from me. It seems like that's my whole entire social circle, but that's good. Dog people are good people. Love you too, Kim. Anybody else have anything? This has been super fun. I'm going to do this again. I was a little nervous about it, to be honest with you, because I wasn't sure, and I don't even know if I know how to end it. So I guess I'm just going to hit the little X here, but if anybody has any more questions or anything else they'd like me to address, I guess one more thing that I could talk about, and then I'll let everybody go, but I posted, I think yesterday, I was just feeling a little bit frustrated by sort of the state of, not just this industry, but the world, just the lack of tolerance that people have. Specifically, the thing that sort of set it off for me is I have a lot of students that are way younger, obviously starting out in the business, and they're not hardened the way I think I am at this stage in my life. I've learned a lot. I mean, you should, as you grow older, you should become, learn things and do things differently than you did when you were younger. And things used to bother me a lot. If anybody disagreed with me or didn't like something I did, it felt very personal to me. It affected the way I thought about myself, and I'm just not anywhere close to that place anymore. But my young students are still there, and a lot of them call me, and sometimes they're in tears. They're so upset because somebody came in and blasted them when all they're trying to do. This is like this is so not cool. You know, here these young trainers are, and they're going out and they're making videos to help other people at no charge and posting them for people to either watch or don't watch. Like, if you don't want to watch it, move on. You know, I mean, everybody has the right to say whatever they want about anything. Like, I like to get in dialogue with people that have questions about my, you know, a certain way that I train. If they want to come in and have a civilized debate with me about it, or ask questions like, why do you do it this way? Like, I'm going to answer this question too. I saw, why do I train with food? And I will answer that question before I go. But, you know, when it starts getting personal and they start calling you names, it can be really kind of traumatic for young trainers that don't have their footing yet. And I think they feel like, you know, wow, I'm just trying to go out there and share what I have so that I can help people, which is a pretty noble thing to do, and they're getting just crushed. So the first thing I would say to people about that is try not to let that bother you, because really, when you think about it, like, why would you care about the opinion of somebody that would get online and actually make an effort to offend somebody? Like, really, does their opinion count? You know, you have to look at it that way. But the other thing that I would say that I didn't say in that video, because it was only 90 seconds long, is that when you are judgmental and intolerant, you make your world really, really small, you know, because you're not allowing anybody else to come in and challenge your beliefs or to debate your, you know, in a nice way, to debate, you know, anything. You're just like literally closing them off, saying, I refuse to talk to you. You must be this or you must be that. And it's not just in the dog training industry, it's just in our world in general. And I think social media has made it way more prevalent, because people can be cowards online and never have to face somebody. So people will say things to you on social media that they would never say to your face in a million years. So I guess what, you know, my point was in that is that, and when I said it didn't used to be this way, it didn't used to be this way. It was, I mean, there's always been disagreement and things like that, but it wasn't as ugly as it can be now. So I would really tell you guys, because I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are younger than I am, is really become ideologically secure about how you train. Be open to other methodologies, but if you are ideologically secure and feel like you are very positive and very sure about the way you train, and there's reasons for it, and you get success from it, and so on and so forth, then that stuff will just roll off of you. You know, criticism will just roll off of you. People have the right to criticize you. Don't get me wrong, they do. But they also have the right to move on, and they also have the obligation to be civilized. And if they can't be, then that's not about you. That's about them. And most of these people that get hurt by these things, they would never do it themselves to somebody else. Never. You know, so I think that's what I was feeling yesterday when I posted that, was just that intolerance is just a way to shoot yourself in the foot. Because now you've closed doors, and you could have had potentially other learning experiences. You could have had your eyes open to something else, to a different technique, a different way of thinking. You could have expounded on your abilities. But no, if you choose to get personal about things, then you just close those doors. So I guess that's it. The food. No, I don't use food when I train, which puzzles a lot of people. And just so you know, I don't have a problem with people using food when they train. I would, and I have used food for like basic obedience stuff like sit, especially when I was younger, before I was even training. I would use, you know, food for sit and things like that. But I don't use food for example, like for distracting. There's a lot of people will do this when they're on walks with reactive dogs, where they will, the dog will get reactive, and then the handler will offer them a piece of food, in which case the dog will turn away and take the food, and not for that moment not be reactive to the dog on the street, but then typically they'll turn their head back and they'll get distracted again. So again, that's a methodology that, in my opinion, doesn't change the dog's mind about the trigger. It can literally, if it's not timed appropriate, it can literally be a reward for the behavior. So if you think about it, if the timing is not impeccable, the dog can learn that every time I get reactive, I turn and I get a treat. Dogs are savvy, you know, and they're opportunist. So they'll figure out really quickly that, oh, this works for me. But I've never seen it work long term on dog reactivity. I think the best bet for dog reactivity is just to remain neutral, to move away from the trigger. There's a variety of different things that it's too lengthy to go into in this particular live, but I started out my career, as most of you guys know, with Caesar. Caesar never used food. We never used food at all, ever, when we trained. He was just like raw, instinctual trainer, and that's how I grew up in the industry. I have since gone in different directions in certain methodologies, but my core principle and my understanding of dog psychology remains exactly the same as what I learned from him. But I do train differently in some aspects, in others I'm exactly the same. But I always, I remember somebody said to me, not to me, but they told somebody one time that I hadn't even met them, but they said Sherry took the best of what she learned and then went on to make her own way. And that's kind of what I did. Like, after 22 years of training, I hope you have evolved some and changed and added to your repertoire, But I feel that food conditions the brain to be excited, and 99% of what people's issues have, the issues that people have with dogs, could be resolved if their dogs were in a calm state of mind. So it's I'll give you one more example. When I send dogs to place and I teach them how to decompress on place, I want it to be an organic process, meaning that I want the dog to go there, stay there, relax there, but I want them to find out on their own how good it feels to be on place. So I make it a very, very raw, organic process for the dog, where I want them to go on there. I remain silent. I don't praise them. I don't touch them. I don't give them food. If I'm trying to achieve a neutral, calm place for the dog to go so that they have an anchor, so to speak. So I'm trying to teach this dog that's reactive every time somebody comes to the front door. So I tell my client, condition your dog to place, and then you can send your dog to place before you answer the front door, and the dog will, if he's conditioned to it, he will gradually become more and more calm when he goes to place. Now you have the ability to make space at the door, right? Move the dog away from whatever triggers him, instead of you holding onto his collar and trying to open the door at the same time with this growling, barking dog. And so that's one example of an effective way to use place work. But if I bring food into the picture in that particular exercise, then I'm taking the dog from calm to fired up, and I don't want that. It defeats the purpose for me. But again, if food works for you, use food. I have never used it. I didn't use it for years when I worked with Caesar, and it's worked for me. So there's no reason for me to change it. And some dogs also won't work for food. So if you're a trainer, you better be able to do some things without food, because you're going to find